Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And we keeping things rolling as we always do around this time of the season. But we take dips and everything. And today I have a guest that I've known since the 90s. I'm that old, going back to the 90s. She may not want to admit it. But we came up in school together, and more so than school. Bright, always with ideas, definitely done some connections with organizing, with creativity, working with artists, just all around cool. Miss Raenita Glover, how are you today?
Pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, definitely you're a person that has supported Detroit is Different in vision, thought process for a while.
Always.
And moving beyond that, you just got an interesting story. And I know you're one of those people that like that kind of balks at the whole concept. Like, these people ain't going to be caring about my story. But those are the best stories for Detroit is Different. The stories that a lot of times people don't want to share because those are interesting.
Okay.
Right.
I'm trusted in the process. That's what I could say. I'm here. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, for sure.
Okay.
Thank you for the credits. I love giving people their flowers. You've always been pretty dope. And, again, 90s, yes, I don't mind admitting it. But, yeah, high school.
Now, when I say that, I mean, it was like the end.
The very end. That's what I'm saying. I'm let's precaution that with, 98 per se. But, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, we didn't have high top fades and cross colors. I don't know.
Not in high school.
It was more like FUBU and iceberg.
Oh, my God, yes. Yeah, that is very nostalgic.
That's clothing for some of the older folks. At one time, that was... And then I guess now we can say younger folks, because younger folks wouldn't know that either.
No, they do. They have... Now their throwbacks are what we were wearing to, high school. Remember we used to do those, throwback days? Mm-hmm. So now they're wearing the stuff that was, late 90s. Doing all of that.
I will wear an iceberg sweater if I find one. So.
Good luck. Good luck.
So with that being said, so much usual Detroit is Different story. Because right now all people know is that we know each other. But other than that, family. What brought your family to the city of Detroit? What's the story behind your people being here?
So I'll just go back to grandparents. So maternal grandparents, they're from Douglas, Georgia, so kind of backwoods a little bit, really, really small town. I would say maybe 2 hours outside of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they came here for work mostly. Of course, like most people, I think, with families came for auto industry, things like that. So they came here, I think, probably in the early 50s. Yeah, early 50s. My paternal grandparents came here from Tennessee. And again, just to explore, I think, more job opportunities at that time. So that's where they came from in the States.
Okay, so whereabouts in Tennessee?
Nashville area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So a large city in Douglas, Georgia. What was the conditions? Did they even share anything where they were, how it was?
Mm-hmm. So my great aunt Nolly, she had a farm, and that's where my grandfather worked. So my grandmother and grandfather
Wait, time out. So you have I guess your great aunt. Was that
yes.
Did she hire her brother, basically?
No.
That was her nephew.
Yes.
That she hired to work on the farm. And the farm was lucrative enough in producing food and being a business where she was able to hire your grandfather.
I don't know if it was necessarily higher. It was you gonna work this. You gonna work these fields.
He worked and they provided something like where it
Yeah.
made sense, but he wanted more opportunity, and
Yes.
that's what brought him this way.
Yes.
But at one point in time, he was there working on the farm as like kind of.
From what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I know, to my knowledge, he worked on the farm. So, both of them have or had like middle school education. Maybe some high school, but maybe not too much. I don't think either one of them graduated from high school. I think 9th grade maximum, I think, for my grandmother. But my grandfather, definitely middle school.
So with it, I'm just still getting into like definitely that business of farming as we think about agriculture.
Yeah.
And, oftentimes like when we look at even public schools itself, public schools are a good provided to American citizens, quote unquote, as a public good, because at one point in time, America was looking to transition this agricultural class of employees to an industrial class of employees. So the way public school is packaged is like, we care about the babies, we care about the kids, but in reality, it was like,
we need to occupy your time.
Carnegie, it was like, we need to turn this person that's great in farming into a worker that can read
do it for me,
and work in work in this plant, producing
factory
steel,
or
oil, cars, plastics, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that kind of was the shift. So a common place,
sure.
but your grandfather had those skills at least in working in that farm. How massive was the farm?
I don't think it was that big from what I can recall. It's very sizable. It was definitely acres of land, but for a young person, when you look out at everything in that space, it's just like it's nothing here. Like you bringing the city kids down to Douglas, and it's like it's one main street and like a community center / everybody's school, and it's not a whole lot. So where her home sat, it was like the only home in that space. So I don't know exactly how much in terms of acres, but it seemed pretty large. It wasn't like, I don't think it was like so massive or like where it wasn't like manageable. At that point, at that time, nobody was like really farming or doing anything else like that on the land. It was just there at that point. By the time, we came down there for like a family reunion, like back in the 90s or late 90s, it wasn't really much to it.
And I ask these questions just because I'm looking from the lens of the way media depicts history, especially when we think about the dynamics between opportunity for black folks, especially black women. So to know that it was a black woman operating a farm in Georgia, and I'm guessing this is around the time of, I don't know the age of your grandfather, but I'm guessing this is probably around the time, like, is this post-World War II or?
Post-World War II.
So post-World War II, maybe like during the Korean War conflict. So we're looking at this during like a New Deal era, but she was
actually, no, I don't know, wait. Yeah, it might have been a little bit like directly during World War II. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even more.
Yeah.
So when we think of the framework, when I look at a lot of media, it's always like these, these stories of, it was a lot of black women that understood the inner workings of property, and business and how things happen. I don't know, the lady that settled L.A., most of L.A. was owned by a black woman. So I hear these stories and I always think like, how outside of the norm was that story. And even like I had a story not too long ago from MC John Cloud that was talking about like land that his great-great-grandmother owned and like their family had. So when I think about women in business, especially the way things are framed nowadays, you watch a movie back then and, it's like some, bigoted redneck, like, I'm not buying nothing from no colored woman, what I'm saying, or something like that. When in reality, maybe the ecosystem of some of those societies actually had to rely more on women like, I guess that would be like your great great aunt to
Right.
make things happen.
And even her husband,
For it to
I never
happen.
knew him, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he was already deceased, I think, when I was born. So I never knew him, but he's part of that story too, in some way. And my grandmother, you know, from her being raised in that environment as well, like all of them were very close, right? Like everybody in that town knew each other. So either by relation or just being family and familiar, right? Like it's not like, okay, yeah, like my grandmother and grandfather were cousins. No. But they were, you know, they all knew each other. Like it was all kind of very close knit.
And I also find it unique as I mean, if anybody know, and God forbid, it's just a part of life. Dealing with death is tough.
Yeah.
Especially being a woman dealing with death back then. My whole interpretation would be like, you know, the court just wouldn't even honor it. The court would just like take that, come up with some goofy probate laws, and just give it to, you know what I'm saying, like. I don't know, the biggest, you know, Colonel Sanders or something, like some white dude or something.
Yeah.
So to know that that will be honored, I think also shows the dynamics of the relationship. Not saying that racism wasn't real, because we obviously recognize that racism was real in the South then, now, in the North, West, East, wherever you want to go. It's existent and a part of the fabric of America. But through that fabric, it's also some very dynamic, acts led by our people. So
Yeah, I think it's like it's stories of resilience. I think when I think of it, it's like how we came through a lot of what we came through. Like to be in a certain space. Like I know when I was younger, it came out that my grandmother didn't have a birth certificate. Like she had no knowledge of like her actual birthday or year even. She was going off of my grandfather's year of birth. She was like, well, I know I'm at least a year younger than him. Or she was like, I may have been born the same year or I may be younger than him. So I was either born in 32 or 33. And I was like, how don't you have a birth certificate? Like that didn't make sense to me at the time. But from where she was from, it was not something that existed. And then that was still part of the struggle of like having access, right? Like the accessibility, not just from being in a small town, but to healthcare, to even like legal documentation of your birth, of you existing, was a little bit different down there too. So,
and I'm definitely we're leaning way sooner into a conversation I was going to have that I definitely was going to bring up in this podcast. But Black women in American medicine have had a very, well, really, I guess you could say Black and put any group of people, and then America, and then the ending being a very tumultuous relationship.
Very much so.
But especially back then. So I could easily see like the doulas being more present and being needed for birthing children, trusting in birthing children, just because of things like, you know, I mean, people always bring up the Tuskegee experiment, which is so weird because oftentimes when you look at the Tuskegee experiment, the only reason we know about the Tuskegee experiment is because the few people that spoke up like, yo, this is wrong. And that went on for decades. So it only like, knowing how this country gets down, I'd be surprised if it wasn't a Morehouse experiment, a Spelman experiment, a Alabama State experiment, a Grambling. You know what I'm saying? America rarely says, let's just try this one time to this specific group of people to see what happens. But Black women in medicine, for a long time, even to today, are like, and right now in like books like Medical Apartheid, you read more about it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, if you've never read the book, the Medical Apartheid book, that would be interesting because then you see the dynamics of ethical, like the levels of what one may have perceived to be ethical in experimentation, where we've had to come and say like, somebody got to put a handle on this. Like,
Yeah.
you cannot do these things. Like, some things you thought were for the greater good were not. They were for your own selfish benefit, or for the selfish benefit of those investigators or people who were looking to explore whatever thought or idea, whether it was behavioral research or physical research. All of those things had to be modified or looked at and just kind of exposed. Like, you wouldn't have known that there was different behavioral research with kids that was done in a very unethical way. Like, who would do something bad to kids?
Yeah.
It actually happened.
I think, I mean, when we think about it, and this is grotesque, and it's one of those things that you all can Google or YouTube. I mean, the whole, I guess, what do we want to say? Like, the science or medical field of gynecology is a direct result of a lot of these sick white men
Yes. That
running experiment after experiment after experiment on enslaved black women.
Yes.
Like, that's just it's
How we know the anatomy of the female uterus and things like that came from that level of experimentation, where it was done very brutally, for sure. Like, without anesthesia, all of those things and I think it still kind of translates to some of the things that, some black women have experienced today, or a lot of black women have experienced in maternal health as well. I mean, even in other health issues too, like pain level and things like that are not taken as seriously for black women.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the levels of like damn near any illness and who's high on that chart.
Yeah.
It's like, it's shocking to see the amount of black women on these charts
that
for
are very disproportionate. Yeah.
That are like out of anywhere. Like, my mom, when she passed away with a brain aneurysm, and this is what's so funny. She passed away of a brain aneurysm, and then you find out more about it, and it's like, well, you can have an aneurysm in your brain. You can be born that way, and it can exist for forever unless you run the right tests and all of that. And this is a Malik Yakini thing, which I stand by too. I think American medicine is great for testing things, but you definitely need to explore all options when you're thinking about prevention and cure. I don't necessarily know if our medical industry is the best with that, just because it is so connected to a profit generation model, which curing something is not profitable. So that's Kari Frazier. That's a Kari Frazier.
I'm like, in some instances, but I agree. In some instances,
and I'm speaking I'm speaking with a broad brush and generalization.
Yeah.
That, like, yes, for the most part, it's
understood.
You know what I mean? As you think that the 50 Cent characters in the Power series are drug dealers. The real drug dealers, You know what I'm saying. So here we go. As we're into that, I was going to say, like, in falling on deaf ears. And I think some of this may be just like and I may be the naivete, just a lack of cultural understanding and what could be shared. So I could easily see around the time when, I guess, your great-grandmother was giving birth to your grandmother, her saying, like, we got the hospital. I can drive into town, drive all the way over to, like, Atlanta or, like, a big city, and I don't know how they're going to treat me. Or we have this doula that's in the community, and we gonna go through the birthing this way versus I don't know what's happening over at that hospital. What they're going to put in me, or I don't know,
Yeah, I think so. Even with that, I think a lot of what comes out now, I think present day, is not just about accessibility anymore, because we know we have a problem with access and equity, right? Like, being equitable across the board. What I think is the bigger thing to really even explore too, and breaking into the system a little bit, is to see what is being told to this person versus this person. And it may not be malicious intent from the physician or PA or MP or anything else like that. It's about understanding the environment and understanding the different factors that kind of come into play. But are you really giving the same information across the board? Because if I went to if I went to the same doctor as, let's say, an Asian woman or a white woman or whatever, are we getting told the same thing? If we're coming in with the same complaint, right? Like, do you get the same level of treatment in terms of like how that condition is assessed, right? Like if we're breaking it down for piece by piece, I think for Black women, it's more of being more vigilant about being your own advocate. And it's hard to say because you're like, okay, you're trusting that these people would do those things. But if you don't ask certain questions, you probably won't get all of those answers. So I've gone through things where like even coming from that background that it's very difficult navigating the healthcare system. You don't know it until you're actually in it as the patient, right? So you're really trying to better understand what's going on, but the whole time you're worried about yourself, right? Like I think that's human, right? Like you're worried about yourself and your outcome. So you may not have all of the questions right off, and it takes other people to kind of help you come up with those questions too. Like if you don't let anybody into what's going on with you, then no one would ever be able to really kind of help you navigate that. And I think a lot of times people go through things so silently and quietly, whether it's breast cancer, whatever it is, that you miss out on some information or you miss out on some levels of access because you're not in the space where you can actually think about the right questions. And again, it's not the onus of the patient always just to, know the right questions to ask. That is on your provider as well to be able to provide that. Just like openly give me all of this up front, right? So then I can take it back, digest it, learn what I need to do and go forward from there and make more of an informed decision. But sometimes when you're in certain spaces like primary care, for instance, like if this would have already been known, for instance, even with your mom, like if that would have already been known, how would I have navigated my own life at that point, knowing what I know now and what advice I've been given? What do I need to do? What level of intervention do I need to take? And it could be different for everyone, but it's still about making more of an informed or impactful decision for yourself too. If that makes sense,
No, I feel what you're saying. Like, I think the industry itself is tough. So you have, well, I guess it's layers to it. So it's like you have the physicians,
yes,
nurses, like people that interact with you. Then you have hospitals, which hospitals are businesses.
Yes.
So this business, even though in the field of medicine, is still functioning like, here we go, classic business term, like it's selling widgets.
Yeah.
Like a lot of, like during COVID-19, when people were like, wow, it's a lot of attention in the medical industry now. And then hospitals were like, I think we're going to end up going out of business. And then people like, from the outside, you're thinking to yourself like, damn, how are they going out of business when they can't turn enough people away? And then it's like, okay, the business of hospitals is a lot of their money is made in what they label as elective surgery, elective procedures. And then it's like, okay, who the hell is electing to have a procedure? And I mean, I know for everybody watching now, they probably in chat saying BBLs. Okay, all right. That's, or for people that don't, Brazilian butt lifts, which is like, I guess, the making a woman's derriere, it could be a man too, larger. And that's an elective procedure, but I don't think it's like making up, fake breast and that, cosmetic surgery is making up such a bulk. I think a lot is still like something being an elective procedure. It's a lot that goes into elective procedures. And a lot of times when you're offered like what can be an elective procedure and you agreeing to it as a person that's done a lot of dental work, you're trusting whoever that physician is that's giving you this advice.
Yeah.
And then after you go through the advice, then you come to like, all right, how much is this going to cost me? And then after you go through, I'm just going through my steps and I assume. And then after how much is it going to cost me, what's the timetable of like, if I don't do it, what could happen and what I won't. So I can tell you from a lot of the dental elective procedures I've done, usually the elective procedure is like, I suggest doing this because if you don't do this now, then in about 3 years, it's not going to be an elective option on the table for you.
And that's what I was just going to say. Like, so elective procedures aren't just like cosmetic always.
Yeah.
So that's anything that you have to opt yourself into. That's your level of intervention for your treatment. versus an emergent procedure. Whereas you come in an emergent and your case pretty much supersedes any other case in surgery for that time frame. So your elective, meaning that your case could be bumped off of that schedule if need be, right? Like you're not gonna die if you don't get these I don't know,
A root canal.
right. You're not gonna that's not going to cause imminent harm to you in this moment, whether if it's today or tomorrow or next week. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the things where it's just like, okay, if it is something that in that business span of like for elective procedures, all of those things, it's a lot of people who still need that level of intervention. And that's how it's a lot of different ways hospitals make money off of incentives, off of insurance, all of those things combined. And there's another factor of what is considered federal money as well too. And that breaks down into a different level of how, payers are assessed and all of those things, like how they can bill, all of that is gone through whatever regulation of, federal guidelines, right? So if all of those things are the case, what you're coming to the table with is, hey, I have this insurance, right? Like it should be able to be used. I should be able to be treated the same as everybody else. And, like nothing is going to crumble around. Like even with COVID-19, all of those things, like everybody's like, okay, well, let's stop. We got to stop and see like that put a real like wrench in the system, right? Like that caused a big wrench in the system. I think a lot of things got exposed through that time period too, right? Like not just medically, socially, everything. Like it made people, I think, take a greater pause and say, like, yeah, it's a lot of messed up stuff out here. Like,
I think
this is not working.
Yeah, like in the steps. So like as a person that like I can tell people like a lot of dental stuff I can probably go through and tell you the steps. So like elective, getting a filling. If you don't get a filling, you're going to end up needing a root canal.
Right.
You don't get a root canal, what's going to end up happening is they're going to need to pull your tooth.
Right.
If they pull your tooth and you don't get another tooth, depending upon where it's at, it's going to realign and reconfigure how your teeth fit.
Right.
If it realigns and reconfigures where your teeth fit, you're going to probably end up with needing fillings and root canals for more teeth. As you need fillings and root canals for more teeth, eventually that's going to get to the gums. When it gets to the gums, now it's getting to emergent procedure because now you possibly could end up in a position where it sounds crazy.
You can't eat, you can't swallow.
Swallow, could possibly die.
Yeah.
Because it's going to end up impacting your heart eventually.
Yes.
So those are like the steps of whatever.
Right.
Brush, floss. Do that. I'm speaking from a one day I'm gonna make a fun for people in their 20s to get dental stuff. Because I completely looked at the dentist as an entrepreneur, like I ain't going. And then
like y'all don't need to go to the dentist. No, you need to go every 6 months, like they say.
Yeah,
like
tooth pain is not.
It's not fun.
It's no joke.
I understand. I understand. Yeah,
yes.
Like you don't want to have those things happen. But again, everyone, what we can pay attention to and what we have accessibility to could be totally different. It's some people who really, they don't have dental insurance, so I don't have $300 to go pay you out of pocket to get my teeth clean. So like, how do we help that?
I mean, and those are that's part of the challenge of some societal challenges.
Yeah.
Because that leads to, especially like, as people get older, like teeth become a bigger thing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
that's one of my top fears, like losing my teeth. If I fall, I'm grabbing my mouth right away. Like I don't like losing teeth or the thought of like tooth decay and all that other stuff, like very frightening.
Oh yeah.
Very.
Got bridge, got implant. I
can
go through the whole I can tell you the procedure for a lot of that stuff. So like, and right now I'm going through something else on the same, one of the implants I had, like a thread snap. So now I got to get another implant. So and the implant, so people know, what ends up happening is basically and it's going to sound crazy, but it's a screw that's being put inside your jawbone.
Yeah.
So like they're going inside. So they're cutting past gum, cutting past gum, and then past gum they got to go in. So now
Yeah.
because they got to put another one in, they got to go deeper than they went before. So it'll be a larger
Yep.
screw. And the whole process of that, it takes some time because obviously your jaw has to re-heal. I'm gonna be 40 this year, so that
Yep.
means that it takes a little bit more time in the healing process than the first time, even though that was just a couple more years. And then they have to make sure that obviously it's aligned correctly this time.
Yeah.
And then you have the option of here is something classic. I mean, anesthesia. Anesthesia becomes a larger risk at an older age.
Yep.
Now they have like that half anesthesia, which makes me think it was crazy back when I got anesthesia when I was like, in high school. Because
Yeah.
certain things, medicine has helped because anesthesia is very dangerous.
It is. It is. And it's so many different effects from like even receiving anesthesia, like just the little things like your hair come out, stuff like that. Like
Well, my hair is already.
It's like your hair gonna come out. You never know.
I'm gonna get my lineup back.
Yeah.
I'm calling Leon immediately. Like, guess what? I'm coming to the barbershop, Leon. I'm coming to the barbershop.
Like, guess what? I'm back.
Exactly. So we went deeper into medical. I didn't even go into the classic. What neighborhood? Where did your people come when they moved here?
Eastside.
Where at?
Mac and Harding and Shoemaker area.
Okay.
Like, so yeah, between Shoemaker over there.
Okay.
French Road.
Yeah, so basically quintessential, like adjacent, as they say, to like the heartbeat of where a lot of folks move.
Yes.
When they come up here, up this way.
Yeah.
So
And
Tennessee is rare.
Yeah.
Georgia, it's a lot of
Very
it's a
much,
lot
yeah.
of Georgia black folk in Detroit.
Yeah.
Tennessee, not as much.
Yeah.
Most of them people go to Chicago.
Yeah.
And
ironically, from those two places, I wouldn't be sitting here because my mom and dad met on Harding. They stayed across the street from each other.
Ain't that something? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we gonna get into that. Did your dad always like your mom? Was it like Urkel
Yes.
and Laura?
Yes.
Not calling your dad Urkel, but you know what I mean. Like, I guess what's a better? Who else is like our TV sitcom? I'm with. I don't know. I
Kind of, sort of like, so my uncles. So I have tons of uncles. So you know how neighborhood is like. All of their friends, and those are my uncles, right? Like, and my biological uncles. So like, my uncles told me the story of how every time they would go outside or like it was some type of activity on the block or whatever, or they sitting out on the porch, my dad would tell them like, nah, I'm gonna sit next to Eleanor. like pretty much back up off my woman.
Okay, so even at an
like,
early,
don't do it.
So that's you. So when did they actually start? Okay, so when did they start actually like I guess dating or?
I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what age. I forget what they said. But they were teenagers.
So basically, they were
high
like
school,
they're one of those stories like that's really like a like what's that John Mellencamp song? They like Jack and Diane for real. Like they they got together from like teenage.
Yeah.
Stayed together, family. That's unique.
Mm-hmm.
That's unique, and then that's so unique.
Build
they
together,
can't even
grow
run
together.
stories like back in the day. I used to, and it's like I knew you back in the day.
Right, like we know what
I know
happened.
every story.
I was there
of your life, so
we were
don't
there.
even try to pull that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Like we were all there, but yeah, no, my uncles. I think they love to kind of like mess around with my dad with that one. Like, nah, he been wanting your mama.
That's funny. That's funny.
Like he already stated his claim. Everybody knew. If anything involved Eleanor or Lois, make sure George get the seat next to her.
That's cool. That's cool. So what did your dad do? What did your mom?
They're both retired now. But my dad retired from the post office and my mom retired from Blue Cross.
Okay, let's go dad first.
Yeah.
Was he a mailman or did he work like in the back or
Everything.
something like that?
So he started off in the military. And then
what division?
Army.
Okay.
U.S. Army. So he did his time in the military and they
he
stayed
ever
in
have to serve?
Texas. No. This is post Vietnam.
Okay, post Vietnam,
Yeah.
and definitely before, and he never got called to
No,
Desert Storm
no
or
Desert
nothing
Storm. I'm about to
crazy
say
like that.
by that time he was already out.
Okay,
He was already out. He was out in, I think either by 79.
but
79
America
or-
stay in conflict.
Yeah.
Nicaragua, America fight. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So that's what America
So
does.
yeah, that was around the time my sister was born, and they were stationed in Texas, and my mom just didn't want to stay. I don't think. And,
Whereabouts? San Antonio.
I do not know for certain, to be honest with you. I think it was Dallas area, Dallas Fort Worth area, but not in the city. Like it was one of the like bases somewhere off from there. But my mom didn't want to stay. She was like, I need to come back. She wanted to be with her family, and she ended up coming back. My dad stayed in the military for a little while longer because he was stationed overseas, and then he ended up when
Where?
he came back, Germany.
Okay.
Yeah. So he came back, and
So your dad was in Germany before the wall fell. Then.
yes,
Okay.
like yeah. Yeah, late 70s.
So that
yeah.
means that he probably definitely has some interesting stories about that, because I mean, just what I hear
Yes.
about what that wall and the transfer of going
Yeah.
from shout out to King High School again, Frau Ellis even talking about that wall. You know what I'm saying? Like that was an
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah,
time. I mean, I don't know if
he has some
you
really
know.
interesting stories. Like you can get him going sometimes. Like he would talk about like in certain situations where it was like pitch black and like they'll call out something and like whatever they're doing, they're like just shooting off their guns into like the darkness now because they're like, okay, something's happening, something's going down. We gotta react, I guess. But yeah, no, he has stories. He has stories for days, I will say. But
Yeah. So from there, they come back to the D.
Yeah.
Still on the east side.
yes.
Okay.
Eastside dwellers all our lives. That's,
Okay.
I mean, that's what we knew. So, like just even moving around with my parents, we stayed by Denby on Hazel Ridge, and then eventually moved to Lakewood and Warren area, and then Mackinac Drive area.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, the gradual come up of what we could consider a come up, like.
I feel
That was a progression there.
like, you gonna not
If
like
you
this.
had to come in those phases,
You're
you're
not gonna like this east side joke. It's like you finally got grass. I'm just messing with you.
we made it. Okay, we made
I
it.
got grass now. Wow.
No, they definitely like worked really really hard. Like it could have been a lot different for all of us. It's three of us, and they worked really hard. They were focused on their family. They knew their mission, and that's what I appreciate about my parents. They knew their mission, and they stuck. They stayed on mission. So right now they have their their snowbirds. They go down to Florida.
Okay.
They stay half the year in Florida. Come
Whereabouts?
back here and stay. Fort Myers.
Okay. Oh man. So where was their
Yeah.
property straight?
Theirs is straight.
Okay.
They're not Fort Myers Beach or like downtown or anything
Okay.
like that. They're like closer to the airport, but
Okay.
still really nice area. It wasn't, thank God a whole lot of damage there, but for those people who did, it's very, very devastating. Like the whole homes wiped away, like you can imagine, like with most hurricanes and the devastation that comes from that. But yeah, so they made it. That's all. I say that to say, they stayed on mission. They stayed in the space of knowing what they wanted, and although there may have been some compromises throughout the way, they made it happen, and they did what they needed to do, and they, I think they knew the family that they wanted to cultivate. So being a product of that, I'm very proud.
And that's unique, as I'm in similar. My parents, before my mom passed, they were
Yeah.
together, 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So and it was weird because my friends would always be like, damn, this is unique to just see that interaction and that, it was like
Yeah.
we was like the Cosbys in the middle of the hood. It was like we
Right.
was the Cosbys in the middle of
in
good
the
times
hood.
happening. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So what was that like for you?
I think it's very similar. Like, I think even when we were in high school, I think people thought that I commuted from West Bloomfield. I was like, okay, like, why would you think that? And I think it was, I don't know, just exposure to different things. My mom had a thing. She's like, you're not gonna sit in my house over the summer. You better pick an activity. If you don't pick an activity, you going to summer school. And that was it. Like, you not gonna sit up and lay up in her house all day, every day. Absolutely not. Like, I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it was in particular, but I do know, like, that experience was like, yeah, everybody looked like, okay, your parents still together, they married, y'all all live together. Like, that was not so much of a foreign concept, but like you said, like, it was like Cosby. Like, I'm like, my daddy worked for the post. Like, I'm like, we making it, but it didn't seem like it was that extravagant as people.
227.
Exactly. Like, for when you're in it, it doesn't seem as though it is as extravagant as what people may perceive. I think that's what it is. Like, your perception of it from the outside looking in, and I can understand that because it comes from a space of, like, lack, right? Like, you may have only had one parent, whether it was your mom or your dad, or and you didn't have all of those other things and being able to do all those other activities and do all of that stuff because time didn't permit or finances didn't permit. Whereas I still seen financial struggle through my parents, but it was just different. They had each other. They had support. So it wasn't, I don't think it may have been the same as someone who's seen other financial struggles with a single mother or a single father. You know what I'm saying? Those things, you know, could look very different and outlook, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, the reality is, I think the resilience comes from the individual, because it was a lot of people who had some of the same things that we had with both parents and a little bit more accessibility per se, but they wanted to do other things. Like, they wanted to be in that space of lack. They wanted to be like the hood or dope boy, whatever you wanted to call it. Like, you wanted to do all of those things, but it's just like, well, you really could have not have done that. You didn't need to do that. It wasn't necessary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely, from my perspective, from when we lived in this neighborhood till I was about 13. Then we moved, as you say, on up to Russell Woods, which is as they say, a better community.
Right.
And the kids over there were definitely way more, do I want to say, especially boys, like, I'm going to say dangerous from the perspective of, I felt that, you know, especially being a black man, you know, young black boy, you have a lot of pressure of being hard. It's like a definition of your self-worth. You know, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be the smartest person. Plus, the smartest person, it's not like they expect me to be smart. Not like the smart guy get girls. Forget that guy. If I'm not a great athlete, I can be the toughest guy.
Right.
You know, I can, figure out a way and maneuver and just bully people and be tough.
Right.
You know, or be funny but like the focus of definitely being hard was, and those guys, like when you're trying to prove you're hard, I think that's a lot more dangerous than people that like really grew up in dire circumstances.
Right.
Because over here, it was more like a thing of, it was just different. Like nothing to prove. It was just like a part of the functionality of life, interacting with people that, you know what I'm saying? Like where it's already understood that like, yo, cuz mom and dad are struggling with crack addiction. So like the arc of what's going on and its presence of like, how this is going to happen is different than like, my dad is like I guess like a lead foreman at, for Ford, and my mom is a principal at this middle school, you know what I'm saying? But, I'll still, you know what I'm saying? I'm still as gangster as my man's, where it's like, not really,
Yeah.
You have a different perspective.
It's a different perspective because you had a different level of understanding and you had different conversations in your own household, in your environment, in your own space. You had different conversations. Now, I will say the culture shock to be even from the East Side, moving through the East Side, is all of those different places and stations and neighborhoods that my parents moved us to were completely different. By the time we made it to Mackinac Drive, where it's like, oh, it's, really nice neighborhood. Like you said, we got grass and it's green. And you know what I'm saying? Like they got shrubbery, not bushes. They got all of these things. They got haberdashery over here. And you know what I'm saying? Like it looks nice when you ride down the street, right? So that, I would say the culture shock there was not just the setting. It was, like you said, the kids. So the kids started to change. So whereas we bring in this Lakewood and Warren attitude of like, okay, we about to go outside and we about to play. We about to do this, do this, do this. Like we ride our bikes from, sun up to street lights on. Yeah. That wasn't the case. That wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, we got our neighbors across the street. They playing soccer in the front yard. We like, what they doing? You know what I'm saying? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, we got our roller skates. We like, okay, let's roller skate up the block. We gonna go meet some other kids and find some other kids. And they looking at you like you the ghetto kid.
You done brought out alligator slip and slide. Like, damn, they done lowered my property values with this alligator slip and slide. Go give that family some free tickets to Four Bears Water Park.
But we did have other families in the neighborhood that was the same. So it made it a little bit easier sometimes. Like the integration into that space was a little bit different, I would say. That's all. I mean, it was good, but it was also being able to see, like, Black people are not just a monolith. Like what we see, the things that we seen from whatever age, being young, like some of that you may not supposed to see. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a lot of people who have captured those moments and living in different neighborhoods, whether or not you were sheltered or not. Like some of those things is just like, some of this you're really not supposed to see or you're not supposed to experience, but it happened and it's part of your story. It's part of your development. Like, whatever it is, like you see, the crackheads, you see all of these things, like the actions of those people around you, you're like, why are they doing that? But then, do you really know their story? Do you know what happened and what transitioned them into that?
And that's where I kind of push back in the sense of, and it's so weird because I spent so much of my life rapping at one point in time and loving hip hop. But it's like, that story does need to be told. It just needs like context.
Very
usually.
Much
so. Like it was so unique. I was at like this one school in the North End, and the kids was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? They were talking about just the way to look at a person's hands and tell what type of drug they're on. And I'm like, this is some wild.
That's very wild.
A wild discussion, but it's unique. But it's almost like a defense mechanism because if you're gonna stay in these communities, it's certain teachable lessons that are needed, like the culture shock of leaving King or getting kicked out of King and then ending up at Northwestern. It was such a different world because when I was at King, I was in, like you, in the MSAT program, math, science, applied technology, and I don't know why in the hell I was there. Maybe my cousin Brody or something. I should have been in the business program all day, but whatever, I'm there. And then you go to like a more traditional high school in the hood, and it's just like a whole nother like vibe. Because like at King, I was more of like a MSAT. I guess you would label me as like, I guess like a bad kid, quote unquote. And then I remember getting into Northwestern, the first day, it was two starking things that stood out to me. One, it was a fight, nobody watched it. Like it was so few fights at King that you watched every fight at King. Like it was a boxing match or something.
Right.
And then the second thing, my last class of the day, while the teacher was in the back, my radio TV class, the person that gave me, Mr. Kutula, gave me a lot of game. But while he was in the back showing people how to like run the editing board or whatever, the kids were talking because it was so close to the first of the month. It was like 5 dudes just talking about different ways on like how you cut crack. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm like, okay, they just joking. And then like 2 of them was like, all right, let me show you. And then they broke out their razors and they're cutting crack in the class. And I'm like, this is a different type of high school experience because this would have never happened at King, even for the most thug kid in MSAT. ain't happening in Eastside.
What are you doing, fam?
You know what I'm saying? Well, not even what are you doing. It would have been like what are you doing? A kid in the class would have told other kids, the parents would have known, you'd have got suspended. You know what I'm saying? It would have been a whole talk by Miss Printup or something, and people at the school saying like, hey, we don't do this type of stuff in Eastside. What's going on? Yeah. Northwestern, it was like, hey, no, you know what I'm saying? My razor technique is to shave. You go straight down. You know what I'm saying? If you cut, I was like, damn, this is like, they're like breaking down the science of it. And this is one of those weird things where it's like, okay, it's more opportunities in life than selling crack.
Yeah.
With that being said, if this is the only opportunity you see, this may be one of them lessons a distorted space where like you can kind of take the street facade off, sort of, and interact and engage. And this is what we interact and engage about.
Yeah.
It was unique. I was like, damn, this is crazy.
That's mad crazy. I don't know. Yeah, to even see it, I would have been like, what are you doing? Like this, that wouldn't have registered to me. Like even being in spaces where I've seen like crackheads and stuff like that still wouldn't have registered to me in school. Like you said, like it would have been like, yeah, we in school. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it was like, okay, I'm gonna just sit and keep writing some raps while I ear hustle this lesson.
Mind my business.
Of like, I'm gonna ear hustle this. You know what I'm saying?
Mind
like,
my business here.
I mean, if anything, I assume Big Joe may have the money if he ever needed to borrow $1 from me. I should probably be able to get it back. You know what I'm saying? But this. So I do think that for young people, the context of some of this is missing because, especially through hip hop paints a story of even when they paint it from a defeat perspective, it's not as real as like I've seen it in the neighborhoods I've been in.
When you see addiction up close, and like you said, even for kids, like I think that's another space of, I know everyone is, really hyper-focused on mental health and things like that. And that is, something that needs to definitely be addressed too. But that level of trauma, I think that sometimes even contributes to some physical, like ailments and things like that. Like you don't know how to process some of these things that you've seen, right? Like, if you think back to like the neighborhoods and the crackheads that like think about some of the stuff that you've seen them do.
I mean, I think that the addiction, the way, like, yeah, it's. I do think it definitely has a direct impact on like mentally, and then even in other ways, even me personally, just being an American, I've accepted and rationalized so many behaviors that probably shouldn't be, just because violence itself.
You have already adapted your mind.
Yes, I've conditioned.
You're conditioned to letting things be, and it's like that is not okay. That is not normal.
Like here's classic. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey man, person X got shot. Mm-hmm. I think like, man, that's messed up. He got shot, but I'm also thinking, what did he do? See? So this is like I'm justifying the violent act already. Like I have it's like a box of like, oh, these are things to kill people for, or and maybe not me, but and then these are things that the streets may kill you for. You know what I'm saying?
Did Joe run his mouth? Did Joe do these? Yeah. Did Joe do? Joe came out of pocket? Like you don't know.
It's a context.
It's a context. Like we need to know more because I'm not gonna pass judgment right now because I don't know enough. Yeah. What did Joe do?
Yeah, and then it's like, oh.
Again, it's like you don't give the benefit of the doubt of like, okay, Joe was not supposed to be killed for whatever reason. No. Like it don't matter what Joe said. It's like, why would you have to die for that? But then in context of what we know and what we've experienced and through like neighborhood stuff or whatever, that clicks, right? Like that goes back to your mind of like, dang, well, what happened?
Like here's a classic one. And this is so like, you tell this story to like, when I say white, because I'm speaking more culturally, because it's black people that grow up in certain environments. Mm-hmm. So you're black in skin, but culturally your understanding and conditioning is different because you grew up in a different space. Right. And you obviously being black in that space, you grow up differently than the white people, but you still adopt some of their conditioning. So when I was like 12, we were robbed me, my homeboy had on some brand new Jordans. We got robbed for our bikes. We got robbed for his Jordans. We got robbed. And I want to say it was like maybe a block away from the the 12th precinct. The precinct right there on Livernois. Like
the police officer probably looking at you like, well, what you gonna do? Because we not
and then going home, we walked to the police station in socks. You know, I don't even know why they took. I just had like some Shacks or something when he was with Reebok, and then and we're sitting there and we're like, okay, we're gonna tell the police, and then the police like, y'all gotta tell y'all parents. We tell our parents, get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? And you're laughing, but stuff like this happens
though.
Because the first thing your parents ask is, where were you? Not, damn, that's messed up. Then my
now, are you okay?
Yeah, are you okay?
Where was you at?
Yeah, where was you at?
Where was you at that you had to get your bike stolen? Like, I think that was part of like the experience. Even growing, like, if you ain't get your bike stolen, like ran from you right then and there, like, come up off them bikes, fam. Like,
yeah,
okay,
and we was face to face on Livernois, where we never got the pistol at us, but we got the like brandish, like the butt of the gun.
Yeah,
could have been a BB gun, could have been a 38. Who knows? We wasn't trying to figure out. We kids, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We like, hey, have at it.
Little kids.
And we riding, and I can tell you what it was. And see, even me, I'm conditioned to be like, okay, we was riding through alleys.
Yeah.
It's not many gangs in Detroit, but we rode through past the folks' garage.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, they I guess they asking to be robbed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But in it, that whole process of like, damn, we gonna get in trouble for this. Whereas I know culturally, it's other parents that would never even tie two and two together. They're like, oh, you're a kid. It's the summer. You want to ride your bike through an alley? Ride your bike through an alley. The reality, hell no. You need to stick to thoroughfares, and then also if you're gonna walk or ride through an alley,
even
you need
while
to
you telling this story, when you said you was riding the bike through the alley, I'm in my head like,
yeah, what you doing riding through a damn alley?
Why?
Because we kids and we do.
But sometimes even in that kid nature, you test boundaries that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
So like for me, it was about safety because I knew where we was at. Still got bikes stolen on one occasion, like while me and my brother riding bikes, but we're, going to cousins' houses. That was like, for me, like that was the pinnacle of like being on the east side. Like everybody stayed that was freedom. It was liberation, and everybody stayed not too far away from each other, and your parents weren't scared to like let you loose a little bit. Like you had a pretty long leash as long as they knew that you were around your family or people that they knew, and they, I know their parents, I know who this is, or I know where they stay. It was more about like, can I get to you when I need to? And I know, generally where y'all gonna be at, right? Like where are you gonna be?
Well, really, it's that the classic black decision of them kids. It's like you either inside
or outside. In or out. In or out.
Damn,
and
I do.
Then come knock on that. Come try to grab that dang on door handle at 4:00. You chose out. So that means street lights ain't on. You got more playing to do. You chose out.
It's like, damn.
That means I'm not about to be bothered with you right now. You're not about to come in here and ask me for nothing. Don't ask me for no sandwich, no drink, no nothing. Get it from the hose.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you knew.
Yeah.
So all of those things combined, you like, dang, yeah. What you were thinking was you were testing your boundaries. This is my assessment, right? Like, because we knew we weren't about to ride through no alleys like that. We know we on the street.
We would do.
But like you said, like, boys may be different, whatever it is.
Boys.
You knew you were testing your boundaries.
Boys do dumb stuff all the time. I think that's just a part of boyhood. You know what I'm saying? Like, some of the stuff I look at even to this day, like, yeah, why did I do that? Like, it don't even make no sense.
It made no sense.
But boys, but in the same sense of like conditioning, how communities, you start understanding and you start picking up certain game of, how things function.
Like, we don't go over there. We know what's over there. We just don't go over there. You
know
what I'm saying? Or if we happen
to
have, or we're in a position where we are locked into that space, we know how to turn that switch on and, we got to change it up. My mind got to be a little bit different. I got to move a little different. I got to look differently. You know what I'm saying? I got to be in this space to know, like, okay, something got to change.
Yeah,
like,
it's a
I need to
way-
be able to move past this block without
Yeah.
anybody really recognizing, but then still recognize,
But
like, I'm not right.
understanding, yeah. Like I was canvassing this summer when we did all those
Yeah.
town hall meetings, so we were in a lot of communities. So
Yeah.
like we're in a lot of communities. So it's interesting because with the two college interns from Bridge Detroit, shout out Bridge Detroit, that were walking with me, they were like, "Man, you sometimes walk in the middle of the street and da 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 da." I'm like, "Yeah," because it's like I can see activity and I know this is an abandoned house. So what I do is like it's like if I can, it's like you time it, you time the walk to the middle of the street at around the time where it's like
Right.
not so
It's not so
right
obvious.
in front,
Yeah.
but enough in front.
Yeah.
And then if it seems a little bit like then I immediately go to
Yeah.
the other side. And then if I'm on the other side even further, then it's like I'm already making progressions of like, okay, I may need to move this way. I may need
Right.
to say something. If I need to say something, I acknowledge
That's it,
this
right.
way. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? If I've committed to walking in this store.
Right.
and it
I'm not
happens
trying to be invisible, but I know what I need to do
Yeah.
to navigate this space, right? Like
Yeah.
I know what I need to do to make it across to this other side. And that's all. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm not trying to be invisible. I know I'm in this space. Maybe it may not be a space of belonging or whatever you want to call it, but it's still a space that I know I need to navigate through real quick.
All
And
day.
if I have to, I'm going to do it. Like I use that same level of awareness even when I've traveled. Like I've traveled a lot, going around to different, countries and different places and spaces or whatever. But it's like, okay, I know when it changed.
Yeah.
Like I know something changed, and I know even as a tourist, I'm not in a tourist space per se right now, but it's a little different. And it's not like I have to be on hyper alert or awareness. Some of the places, yes, but it was still like, okay, dang, this is that feeling that you need to navigate a little differently. It's not about being invisible or trying to look a certain way or trying to be this. It's just, all right, my mind has to switch to a different level of navigation. I'm not so much looking around like, oh, and all like, oh, this is nice. Let me get to where I got to go.
Yeah. And it can happen. Like, I mean, immediately, but still, it's like we've been conditioned to accept the fact that, like, violence exists, crime exists.
Yeah.
As sad as it is, like racism exists. Like some of these truths, as much as I don't want to accept it, I know I've been conditioned to accept.
Yeah.
Hence, the race comes into play for Black folks a lot.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, hey, I had a job interview today. All right. Yeah, the lady was cool. Was she white? You know what I'm saying? It's like, damn, why did that even matter? And it's like, it do matter.
It matters.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, that'll be a common question from all levels of Black folk.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, damn, you just had a job interview. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, she Black, but you can tell she ain't black. And it's like, what did that mean for a person that's listening? But for us, we know exactly. It's like, oh, I got exactly where you coming from. You
Say
know what I'm
less.
saying? Yeah.
That's all it is.
it's like,
say less.
He white, but he cool as hell. And it's like, oh, I know what that means. You know what I'm saying?
Say less.
Or he cool with this. And it's like, okay.
But then
I
it's still
understand.
like you still take a certain level of precaution still too, right? Like
Most
it's
definitely.
still like that same switch that goes off. Like I still have to be aware in this space. I still have to do this or I still have to do that. But I always say, like, even now, like being in those spaces of like corporate and all that other stuff, like you trying to go back and forth or navigate how you want to speak and talk and act and do all that other stuff. Just it's more simple to be yourself. You don't have to code switch it. Like you could just
we
talked about that.
this,
Like
and
you
now
ain't
I guess
gotta,
we
you
can.
ain't got to do it. You
let's-
ain't got to do all of that.
Let's
Just-
lean into that, and I guess
You
in
ain't gotta do all
that,
that.
because you work in the corporate space, but also like reconnecting post high school, because we
Yeah.
there now. But post high school, we reconnect. Obviously, well educated, matriculated through beyond. And what college you go to?
I went to Bowling Green.
Okay,
in
you
Wayne
like it there?
State. Did I like Bowling Green? No, not at the
Okay.
time. No.
Okay,
No, it was not. I liked it for what it taught me in both like an academic space and a social space too. But as far as just the institution itself, it left some things to be desired, and I know a lot of things have changed since I've left.
Okay.
When I went there, it was very, I think it was like 5%, Black in terms of
Yeah.
student populace, and it's a small town. So the majority of the town is the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So Bowling Green, Wayne State, we reconnect on like a creative project, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. And then it's like I didn't even know you were gonna be there. You know, and then I'm like, I know Ray from back in the day. Like,
Yeah.
what up, though?
Yeah,
and then like creativity was you were working in this space of creativity so much, and then from there reconnect again, and I'm like, oh, you more in like the corporate space now, but the creativity I know is still there. Explain both. What were you
I've
doing
always been in the
creatively?
corporate space too, though. Like
You know?
I've done both because I don't think you have to limit yourself to one or the other.
Okay.
I think what you do and how you express yourself, like you don't have to just be one. You could be a lawyer and an artist, or a lawyer and a whatever. Like however you need to express yourself. It's so many different pieces and so many different ways of being and dynamic to you as a person when you're self-aware. And I don't think I've even had that level of self-awareness at that time, but I knew I needed to still create a space for myself to be expressive, to be able to be supportive. Like I want to be able to translate all of these things, whether it's from science to social, or physical health or whatever it is. And then also community, also artistry, doing hair, all of those things. Like,
So explain
it just,
some.
I had to make sure I had some level of fulfillment to be able to create an outlet for myself, whether it was a way to decompress. And it still became a little bit more than that. And I was able to build into it a lot more. You lean into other things more that give you more purpose and, whatever, fulfillment or passion or whatever you want to say. But I just started to lean in more to those things that just, helped me to either decompress or to really express myself creatively.
So what were you working on? Because like I'm thinking like 11, 12, 13, you were active in that mix. What were you guys working on? What were you working on?
Through the Better Detroit Youth Movement, we were working on a lot of things with youth mentoring, that type of thing. So I think around those times I was actually really like heavy into the schools doing girls groups through a program called GLOW, Girls Leaning on Women. We had a lot going on with different projects, with the art parties, all of that stuff that we was doing to really try to build upon that enhancement of just giving youth a different way of just understanding there's different levels of different things that they can do outside of just, okay, you got to go to school, you got to do these things. But if you're never exposed to like banking or whatever, like how would you know if you don't like it? How would you know not to explore it, right? Like you don't know about a lot of things that could help you or may have a bigger impact in your life rather than what you've naturally seen. Whereas, like how we were kind of like inundated with the, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a, professional athlete or whatever it was. Those were the levels of what was like, that's your success. Like you made it, right? Like you made it if you can do any of those things. Well, you still made it if you're the hairstylist that's banging right now. You know what I'm saying? Like you made it because you're doing something that is natural to you. One, you never know. That could be more natural to you than going and being a scientist, right? Like you can understand chemicals and all these other things, but then did that translate more to help you understand how to better be a hair colorist rather than, go work at GSK somewhere? You never know.
So with that, I got a couple questions to pose at you. While doing that, what did you learn about young people? What did you learn about the girls you were working with while doing that when you look back at it? And then also right there, and then lead with how long were you guys doing that? How long were you doing that?
That was over the course of, I think, at least like 5 or 6 years.
That's what I was thinking.
Consecutively.
So,
yeah.
So what did you learn about girls in the young people period
during that time?
During that time,
they're very dynamic. They were very dynamic young women, and I still talk to a lot of them to this day. Like they'd still try to call me Miss Ray. I'm like, you got a whole family. Ray is fine. Like, let's start there. But what I learned from them was their experiences weren't so different than mine, especially at the high school level. Not so different. In that the focus on relationships, the focus on trying to build success around them, the focus on family issues, things that were happening in their communities directly, it wasn't that different. But I appreciated the time that I was able to kind of share with them and kind of hopefully, give them things that I learned that they don't necessarily have to go through. I don't think that having to actually deal with it personally versus someone telling you about it, like, you don't have to experience it firsthand for you to know, like, yeah, I don't need to go that route, or, well, I already know that this is what it is over here, so now I can explore some things over here since I already know that. Like, I don't have to go fill up my knowledge bubble over here because I've already learned that. Now I can go somewhere else and try to focus my energy and find out what I want to do here. But I think, yeah, so I learned a lot from them in terms of like social and emotional health type of things. Like I said, with relationships, the things that they were going through were not so much different than my experiences when I was younger too.
So, with that, the next question is, while doing that, what did you learn about the system of schools, education, interacting with young people, programs for young people?
There was still definitely a lack. Like, what they got from what we were coming to do and to achieve, I did not get when we were in high school. Like, it was not like some type of like girls program or outlet for, like, we just learned through talking to each other. So where, even if you wanted to know some things about, relationships or sex or whatever it is, you talking to your homegirls about it and they still don't know nothing either. Versus like if you had somebody to kind of come in and help guide some of those conversations, it would be a little bit different, right? Like you had someone that was not partial, it's not your teacher, it's not somebody that really, has any hankering on, oh, okay, you're gonna judge me, right? Like, no, you can kind of freely speak, and it gives you, hopefully a different place and space to be in. Like I said, you don't have to experience it just firsthand to know that may not be what you want to do right at this moment, or something that you may want to explore later on. Like, you never know.
Why do you think it's so important, or why do you think with that it is important for young people to have, like, I guess like another voice to get some of that advice, to get some of, I call it advice game, to get that game
can get that game. Shoot. I think it's important just because why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not go ahead and just put it out there on the table? Why would I want you to shortchange you or take you on a longer route than what you really need to go? You know what I'm saying? Or, if it's not necessary, why do all of those things? And I think hearing it and actually doing it, again, two totally different things, but I really think that it's not always necessary to actually have the firsthand experience. But I think a lot of the schools definitely do need those programs to have like that outlet. I think whether it's just in conversation, it's a big part of like growth and development. Having somebody to be able to bounce ideas off of sometimes. Those are always like those, those are those sweet spots. Whether you come in terms of like trying to create this program and we're going to talk about this, and this, and this. The best part of those conversations come from outside of that, the reality of what they're dealing with in that moment. So you can be generalizing a conversation about relationships, but what comes from that is other traumas or other triggers that we can really talk about a little bit, right? Like, you've seen certain things, like you may have seen your uncle beat your auntie or something like that. Like that spreads a different level of conversation to say like, hey, we know these things aren't right, but what does that look like? Or how did that look like before it even got to the point of like physical altercation, right? Like, it helps them to kind of understand, value, worth, all of those things. So
Yeah. And for people watching, I do want to say this from, I guess, teaching is, I don't know if I want to say, from instructing at a
Yeah.
couple last stand schools. Domestic violence in teenage relationships is still
Yeah.
is higher than you think.
Very much so.
It blew my mind because it's like, well, damn, you 15, you don't live with them or nothing. I mean, you volunteering.
And
You
it
know what I'm
was,
saying? And I mean, this is my tone deafness, but in my mind, and I assume if I consider myself a normal thinker, I assume others may be thinking along this lines too. It's like, damn, you like voluntarily walking into, basically taking the bus for this dude to be going upside your head.
Yeah.
It's deeper than that. The distorted, or let's use that term. The distorted relationships that can come about is deep. So it's deeper than people were thinking, and it's sadly more common
yeah.
than you would assume too.
It is very so. Like even the healthy relationship piece, it's certain things that I don't think translates the same. Like you have to kind of say like, don't let this social media stuff boost your head up. Like this ain't really what it is. Or like you said, like they don't understand the levels of steps that kind of go into that level of controlling or domestic abuse type of thing. Like I had one young lady. It was a whole situation about a phone. Like they had a phone bill together. I'm like, y'all in high school and y'all have a shared phone bill. This is already problematic. Like, why do you have a joint? Why are you connected in this way? Like you're trying to establish something beyond what you really need to right now. So that's already something where it's like, is this healthy? Is this healthy for you? Are y'all, you're taking on something that you really don't need to, or you want to embellish more of a like domesticated lifestyle together while you're in high school, right? So phone situation is, the phones are shared, and then the boyfriend, takes the phone from her, and well, yeah, he took my phone, and this is this whole story about this phone, and I'm like, baby girl, it's really not about the phone. It's about what he can get you to do for this phone at this point. Like from what you're sharing, it's more about the level of control that comes behind that, and now this is something that's still going to lead to things that are progressively unhealthy. So what seems like it's just a phone is not really. From what was, what I'm saying? Like those things happen where it's just like, yeah, you don't know that a lot of the kids are really kind of trying to domesticate themselves in that way. But it's like, no, you should probably think about this a little differently. Like to what extent would you need to have this phone with this person? And then also why would you ever have to surrender something that is yours to someone else for the sake of his comfort or his questioning or something like that? Like that's, what I'm saying? Like what is it that you want? And it's hard to say it without like sounding like you're passing judgment on them, because in their mind that may be something that, like I'm grown, I pay for this, I do this, I do that. Oh, okay. But
you're acting out. So which shifts to, and I want to come back to that. So I'm going to put a pin in it for a second. But the corporate space. What are you doing in corporate space? Because that's the creative space you were working, and then concurrently in the corporate space. What's your background? What are you doing?
So I work in more of a scientific background. So with corporate space, it's always been in healthcare. So that's always been what's natural to me. I always said, like, even for kids that want to go to college and they want to explore college, if that's what you want to do, I think a lot of times it takes a little bit more time to understand, like how you said with MSAT, like if you would have known what you know now, then you would have been in the business program and you wouldn't have been at MSAT, right? Like,
I don't know. At that age, if a girl would have been, you know what I'm saying? If I could have got some rhythm from a fine girl, I would have been in whatever program.
But thinking about it in that way.
I was in fine girl program. Like,
right. Well, think about it in that way.
What is this? But in
If we
reality,
knew what we
yes.
knew now,
Yeah.
would you still do this? Would you still follow that same path?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of people who have degrees that have done nothing with them, honestly, in terms of like, are you a microbiologist or have you ever been? No.
Mm-hmm.
But have you used what you know and applied it to how you wanted to navigate and explore whatever career you're gonna explore? Yes, great. So with that, all that being said, I think it's about being in a space that was natural. So that's how I got into that. That was still natural for me. It wasn't foreign. I didn't have to study 10,000 hours or whatever just to, understand or grasp the concept of chemistry, biochem, all of that stuff. I knew it because it was natural.
Yeah, shout out Miss Barton.
I'm like that was just what was natural to me. And then coming out of that, it was still being able to explore creative spaces. Like it started like even in college with like doing like poetry nights, all of that stuff. Like all of those spaces kind of help to kind of cultivate like, oh yeah, I can do both. It can be dope if I'm in both of these worlds, right? Like I don't have to inundate myself with just, the science or whatever. I can still be in a different space. And I think even the science still helps me be creative. I'm a spatial thinker. So that's what I gathered even from knowing that. Like, I know I'm a spatial thinker. Things like geometry or chemistry and all of those other things come natural because I'm good with spatial arrangement. So that's how my mind works, So those are the pieces that I really kind of play off of, even when it comes to more creative things, whether it's like, making something, being creative, using my hands or whatever. I'm thinking in that same space, but it still translates both ways.
So with that being said, back to like the healthy like I guess it's in today's culture, like healthy relationship, toxic relationship, unhealthy relationship, like it's sometimes maybe the critical thinker,
Yeah.
Analyzer in me is like, what is a healthy relationship? And then furthermore, I guess the biggest relationship we'll always have is the relationship we got with ourselves,
For sure.
So oftentimes, as they say, we're going to attract who we are or what we are and where things balance, which is some merit in that. I don't believe in any absolute back to that critical thinking.
Yeah.
But what does that healthy relationship look like? How do you even determine what a healthy relationship is if you're a teenager? I mean, it's people my age and older that still don't can't
that are not
quantify
self-aware.
a definition of what that is. They can definitely tell you like, okay, I don't want this. They can tell you what they don't want,
what you don't want,
but they can't define what they do want. What does that look like? How does a person even get to that point, especially if you're at such a young age?
Being able to kind of be able to sit back and observe, take the things in the person that at face value of what they are, right? Like it's not about creating this whole list. I don't think like I want you to be this, this, and this. This person is who they are, allegedly, right? Like this person is who they are. They hopefully, both are self-aware, both have their own compass of how they are, and they have their missions of who they want to be, and how can you bridge those two and be in the world, and do you see the world in the same way? I think that's the most, biggest part of like being able to build on a healthy relationship. Not ideally, like everything doesn't have to match up with your own, ideas, thoughts, values, opinions, but it should be some alignment there, because how else will you be able to navigate and stay on mission and be able to grow, right? Like from what I could see, and I'm not saying that my parents are like the perfect couple or anything like that, but I'm using that as an example to kind of bridge back into, they stayed on mission. They got what they needed out of life and wanted out of life from each other, because they know how to stay on mission. You know what I'm saying? They know how to cultivate and develop together. They're their own people. They're self-aware about who they are, whether their disagreements, they can disagree on other things that may be trivial, but they still know how to come together. So I think your perspective on the world and outlook on how life is when you're trying to do life with someone, that should be pretty closely aligned to even start in a healthy relationship space. from there on, yes, you can still ideally build with the person that, you know, they're going to build or they're going to bring out characteristics in themselves. You're like, oh, I need that. Right? Like this person is very direct. I need that. I'm not as direct. Sometimes I'm closed off and I don't know when to speak or whatever. So I need that. I need to be able to help and learn and grow from that. Right? Or, you know, those types of things. Like you said, it's not about like, I don't want this or I don't want that. It's about what do you want? How do you want to be and who are you being for that other person too? So being selfless, like it's not just about what you want or what you desire in that person. It's about, are you the best person to complement that type of person as well too?
And I don't have answers to this, but I'm going to just pose this to you. Because like I say, that relationship even with self.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to you,
That's
too.
the first part.
You know maybe what you want. You know what you don't want. But you may not even know what you do want for you.
Right.
Because it's another onus of responsibility when I clearly define this is what I'm after. Now it's a new level of pressure that can heighten the anxiety in who I am.
Exactly.
Because
and you
now
don't know
I'm no longer going around like, nah, not that.
Right.
That's weak. I've justified this, justified that. But
Right.
it's like, nah, now I have a target. I have a goal. I have a purpose.
There you go.
But now that comes with the anxiety of like, I must fulfill this purpose, which it's a lot of level and comfort in being unfulfilled with no purpose. It's a level of comfortability in just being.
Okay.
You know, and unclearly defined.
Yes.
Allowing on other people to make decisions
for you, yeah.
For you, that involve you.
Right.
And then like you no longer have the onus of responsibility if it goes left.
Exactly.
And then if it goes right, then you win. You know what I'm
right.
saying? You get a
you
piece
still came
of
up.
something.
You still coming up. Right.
So
like
I was
you
gonna
with
say
it.
like how do you get to, because you touched on self-awareness, and self-awareness is one of those things, I guess I look at life in the spectrum, like it's unbalanced. Is, you know, you came in, you're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm all over the place, because like in certain things it's up. Yeah. Certain things I wouldn't say are down, but they're not in a path where I can clearly, I feel trust in, okay, what's going to happen next. But that's the beauty of life. The beauty of life is the unexpected. You know, if I knew that, if I could read my life like a book every day, it wouldn't be worth living. It's the unexpected. Sometimes that unexpected is, you know, what do they say? It's a blessing or a lesson. I like them old, you know, black lessons. But in reality, some lessons you don't want. But it comes in life, and then in those lessons you don't want, other understandings, appreciations are given.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's experience. Like, can you speak to, like, so if somebody already told you that this is what's going to happen based on what you're doing right now, this current project, I already know this is the outcome. I already know it.
It would be tough to want to fulfill anything.
So would you go to that? Would you go and still do that project if you knew the outcome and the outcome was already favorable? Would you do it?
See, and this is, I guess, the risk taker entrepreneur in me. I'm gonna be like, let's throw some more season in that. If I know that this is like, if I know,
to elevate it, then.
Like almost like if I know I could get a 2-point shot off this person, let me go for 3. That's, you know, which I know is another level of conditioning.
You were willing to elevate that with a base level. Like, you don't have to go through all of the growing pains. This person already said this project yields this, right? This is the outcome. Now, in your mind, you're thinking, it's a desirable outcome. So why not put more into it, right? So that's what I'm saying. Even when you're mentoring and you're doing all these things for people, it's like, it's another step. Honor the other step. You just get to step up a little bit quicker. And that's the purpose. Like, I don't want you to be sitting on this one step. I've already honored that step by letting it be what it needed to be. It's done. So now we can move to this next step. Like, it's still stairs to take. And then if you get to another step before I can or before I do, why not still give me the outcome and say, like, hey, okay, this is what this one is about. This is how you get over this step.
And that's what's so unique about certain friendships or relationships. I'm going to speak to friendships or just any human interaction. Like, the older I've gotten, like, even people themselves can remind you of, like, I know for me, I'm an associative person. So, like, people remind me of certain things, places remind me of certain things, mindsets. If I wasn't as clear, I don't know if other people feel this, like if I wasn't as clearly defined in where I was at, which usually is a time when my creativity is gonna ooze a little bit more. It's like I'll hit that wall where it's like, damn, where am I? I ain't doing nothing in my life.
Right.
And then I'll flirt. It's like I'm thinking I'm going into the lab. But if I'm connected and around at that person where like that reflection from the mirror, I'm not really fulfilled in myself. Now who's with me is kind of on this journey with me too. And this is a Kari thing. I'm not saying everybody may feel this way, but that person's with on that journey too. So that's why I tip my hat to the partnerships in marriage or business or friendships that last through the iterations of where a person can be in life.
And everybody has the right to change their mind, right? Like you have just what you described right there, and it's not any shade or anything like that. But from what I process is like we all have a certain level of chaos sometimes.
Oh, always.
And as much as we want to appear, and I think that's sometimes people's goals, whether if you're not as self-aware, if you're always trying to appear as though it is one thing, you're presenting the lie so that you can help, whether it's helping you cope through what you're going through or whatever it is. But if that appearance is more important than really breaking down the chaos and really trying to like smooth things out to kind of get it to where you need to be, then I think that's what causes a lot of fracture sometimes in relationships because
I'm smiling. Because that reminds me of like now as I've gotten older, I don't know other people, when you get older, this may happen to you. Past stuff in my family is starting to come up where I'm hearing stories and I just let it be known blanketed. And it's so weird because some people in my family are different.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, any of that shit that happened back in the 60s or 70s that they didn't tell me then, the elders that died with that, let them die with that. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, nah, I want all that info. I'm in the leave me in the blind mix.
So if you were to get married, you wouldn't want somebody to tell you or have an experience of marriage that can help guide you in that space, like, or share experiences with other married people. Because then now you're in a similar space, right? Like, where would you learn how to be a husband if you were not around husbands?
I feel what you're saying.
See what I'm saying?
I agree with that, but I'm saying like some of my family history, like some of the ugliness in the family, I'm saying I would rather not know.
I see. So even the detrimental pieces, you don't want to know it.
Yes. For me, ignorance can be bliss. I'm straight up. I let people know. And some people feel differently. You know what I'm saying? Like anything like, murder, molestation, rape, you know what I'm saying? Like this person was like, cool and heavy or something. Yo, I would rather keep these rose-colored glasses of who this person was. And then obviously it was elders that didn't want me to find this out. And I didn't find out then. I don't want any context of recharacterizing my any of my
uncle,
elders,
whoever,
my uncles, aunties, or whatever. Keep me in the dark in certain ways on certain things. That's interesting. Now, I bring that to this point because
it's fair, but it's interesting.
Because I think often in that whole world of like reflection and justification, and then as you say, it's about us. I mean, this device itself, like social media, more so now, and I'm sure more and more as mental health, quote unquote, is being, I think, marketed.
Yeah.
More so to people.
Yeah.
But it has to bother people. We're social creatures. We compare ourselves to others. We're looking. And even me personally, you're not going to get Kari Frazier waking up as soon as I wake up out the bed.
Right.
Hey, I'm getting at it. Picture. You're going to get my best offerings in pictures and photos.
Right.
If I shift, then this is the conditioning of people. If I woke up and started doing that, I'm going to probably start getting phone calls from people like, yo, man, everything
you okay?
Cool?
Are you okay?
Want something? And it's like, nah, that was just me waking up.
But that goes back to representation. Like, you're trying to fit everything into the lie.
Yeah. An image that I have, LinkedIn Kari, Instagram Kari, Facebook Kari.
All different.
Yeah. speaking of different layers versus like just Kari Friday, I'm not doing nothing is a different Kari. You know, even this interaction, like sometimes, like it's like, man, you could talk for hours. It's like, yeah, I like conversation and communication. I'm very extroverted. But then at times, I do get shut down and I'm not really wanting to say nothing to nobody. And people be like, you straight?
Which would be hard to imagine.
I'm straight. So, I know it's hard to imagine. But at times, especially like women I've dated, be like, damn, you be acting like you don't want to talk no more. And it's like, I got to be in the frame of mind for this. Hence, that's kind of, this goes back to the whole leave me in the dark on certain stuff because now that it's in the light, it's going to cause a response. It's going to cause a response. You know, like one of the biggest questions, and then I even stopped myself. My great-grandmother was in this house, my grandmother's house, because this was my grandmother's house. But it was like 7 kids. And of the 7 kids, I got a great uncle that was Ohio's first black judge. I got a great uncle that was like a lead administrator at like this public school in Chicago. I got a great aunt that was like a hell of a teacher in Chicago. I got my grandma going through like I say, you find out more about history. It was an interesting relationship my grandma and granddad had. You know what I'm saying? But the great grandmother moved here, and then we also had a great uncle that was a lead manager in one of the 4 body plants when it was up in Flint. Like, it was people in our family that had more resources for my great grandmother. But my great-grandmother stayed with my grandma. And I'm like, why, if these other family members had more resources, would she come stay in the hood with my grandma? To the point where it's like a little house behind this house where people always say, what's up with that? That was my great-grandmother's house. So my great-uncles built a house for my great-grandmother because my grandmother requested it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, in her name, obviously, a lot of people know this Mother Dear. It's like, because she was always bossing people around. But I'm thinking to myself, like, how did she have the juice to boss people around like that? I just don't see my sister calling me saying, hey, we won't build a house out here for Dad, and he going to stay out here in California now. And I'm going to be like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like,
they don't make them like they used to. Like, you were like, come on now, fam. I'm not going to build a house right now.
I'm going to be like, first off, if he going to stay with somebody, he might as well stay with me. Throw me some paper, and we'll get him straight. You know what I'm saying?
But are you going to go out there with the hammer and the drill and start building?
No, I don't see that reality. So it was a question I always had, and it's like these other questions that pop up. But I'm like, okay, obviously it's more context to this story. Probably context that in reality, guess what? That needs to pass away with whatever was going on at the time.
But that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I feel like Joe got shot.
Yeah.
But now we start to try to rationalize and conceptualize that level of trauma, knowing that it just should not have happened. So, i.e., Uncle Joe shouldn't have raped my little cousin, but people want to rationalize, well, my little cousin was hot in the pants and she was going around here acting all thotty and trotty, whatever. No, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you're saying that, what I'm hearing and how I process it is like, okay, I don't want to know because it's gonna cause some level of action that's needed. Here's the thing. What I have experienced through not my family, but even pseudo family. Things that keep getting swept underneath the rug. You may put that rug back down like, oh, we over that. We out that shit. Like, we're done. We don't have to unveil it anymore. Next thing you know, you got all these mounds on the rug. How can you walk? How can you walk when you don't actually take the time to sweep that shit from underneath that rug? Like, we got to air this out because this cannot continue to build up because we're going to have nowhere to walk in a minute. Like,
okay, and I do think that there are certain things, but I do think when a person dies, some things die with that person.
I think that's still, yeah.
But especially like if it's generations deep. If it's current, yeah, we gotta address it. Come on, bring it on. What happened? What happened? Like we have a response, but like
I don't know where did that come from though. Like, don't speak ill of the dead. Is that something like biblical?
I don't know.
Or is it something
I'm
like
saying
just parable? I'm asking because I want to know. Like,
I don't know.
if they were, I don't care. You dead.
Okay, like even,
what are you gonna come back and do?
Like right now, it's a movement, and I want to say Dr. Umar Johnson is leading it, saying like, look, don't vote unless they arrest old girl that lied on Emmett Till. She needs to be arrested. She ought to be like a 95-year-old white woman now. The white lady that lied on Emmett Till. I forget her name, Catherine, whatever. So right now,
I know who you're talking about, but I was processing. My face was processing the don't vote
the concept
until.
Of it. I mean, because his process is like Democrats don't stand up for black people. But I mean, we can't get into the science of Umar Johnson. But let's get into the science of just her in that case and what the deal. Now, me personally, that's one of those things where it's like, okay, that's the type of family secret. If I was one of those white people in that family, I'm not dating. I don't date white women, but like, let's say in alternate universe, my girlfriend, that's her great grandmother.
She's a descendant of her. Yeah. Okay.
Now I got to deal with the truth that it's like, damn, this is a tough truth. Like, where your great grandmother needs to step up and do something. You know what I'm saying? Like, your great grandmother must respond to this. Mm-hmm. But the minute she dies, my girlfriend now, I don't know how much of a burden that, actively, even what response she makes. Like, does she give some money to like any black person she sees? Does she pick an organization? Does she, you know what I'm saying? Does she donate her, her kidneys to black people?
Some level of reconciliation.
What causation? And I guess this is the same question we have with reparations, but I'm speaking specifically to that person and anybody in that woman's family, because I know it has to loom over their whole family like a black cloud, because they've been hiding her and moving her from state to state for years. And that's the type of secret, to me, that probably your approach I would be more down with. But the minute she dies, I don't know what that family does now.
I think, again, so I don't know where the, don't speak ill of the dead thing came from, if it's like an omen type of thing or like bad juju, whatever it is. I don't know. I really don't. I'm saying it's hard for people to reconcile Meemaw.
Yeah.
So my grandma, my dear, whoever, with some calculated, crazy person who made sure that they lied to get their way, right? Or to get to make something happen that was ill-intended, right? Ill intent, trauma, death came from what she did. So this is this person here, but she's also this person to me. And because I think we've been conditioned to associate so much entitled versus what the actual who the actual person is. Like, how much have we taken time to get to know some of our family members who have these designated titles outside of, this is my grandmother, this is my uncle. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't tell you half of what my uncles did, and you know what I'm saying?
In the 70s. And you know what? You probably don't,
because I haven't, and I probably do. Like, I would sit there and have that conversation.
Okay.
And a lot of people, and I'm not going to air out everything or nothing like that. I'm just saying. So I have had a conversation with one of my particular family members that everybody assumes. You have, the assumption levels are great, I think, in a lot of families.
You got that right.
People have so many preconceived notions and assumptions about who this person was, and they were just as raggedy as the person that you hate most. And I'm just saying this because when you don't know how they got to where they are, if you never ask the questions, like, I had a conversation with my mom about this family member, and she was like, why are you always making stuff up? Or what? I was there. I stayed right here, and I knew this. I seen this person all the time. I knew it. I seen when it happened. No, you never heard it from her mouth. She's like, oh, she had a job. She ain't never worked. She had 3 jobs. How about that?
Okay. So Okay, so like here go
I
the
talked
classic.
to her.
Here go the classic one, and this happens in a lot of families. I think in black families, it's easier to recognize than
Yeah.
maybe in other families. But like, it may happen in white families too. But like, we've all seen like the family photos where at the
Yeah.
funeral where it's like, okay, grandma is like uncle dark skin,
Yeah.
aunt dark skin, this aunt light skin. What was happening right here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a classic one. And it's like, to me, if granddad, because this is, I think culturally things happen like that. And that's in my family on both sides in certain ways. I think it's a common in many families where it's like, I know that ain't my baby, but granddad be like, you know what? It's my baby. You know what I'm saying? Because I probably got another kid across town or whatever. The dynamics, it happened. And I'm saying that when I go
on
to
biology more than what it actually is. The person who raised you is your daddy.
And that's where I'm saying, like, that's them type of truths where it's like, well, I didn't get as much this and da-da-da-da, that led to this. And that. It gives context to certain things.
Yeah.
But some of them contexts, I feel like, okay, all of that stuff happened in the 50s.
Yeah.
So right now, 2022, Kari Frazier's like, hey, that story at the funeral, I'm going to be playing with the kids. Y'all can be having the whole that discussion. And you going to be at the big folks table. And I'm going to be over with the kids.
But I don't think it's fair to characterize that as the victim's table, though.
I know. I said the big folks.
Oh, I'm sorry. The big folks. I'm sorry. Okay, so the big folks table, even that characterization is like, okay, now those are the people who have the burden of dealing with it, right?
Yep.
You have this experience of this person. So even if these people are at this table, right, you've already released that and that, okay, you hold that burden. It's not for me to carry, right? And that's still fair. That's why I said it's fair. However, this is the person that you still interact with. Regardless of the person that harmed them or hurt them is deceased.
Yeah.
This is the person that is here that you're choosing to still have relationship with, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't have a relationship with them, again, okay, maybe that would be, to me, in my process of thought, would be like, okay, well, why? What do you need to know all of that for? What does that information then do for you if you're not trying to have a relationship with that person? But if this person at this big folks table is your close aunt that you've developed a relationship with, you really just don't know her story because you're not trying to see her. But not only that you're not trying to see her, and this again my perspective, you don't want to see the person that you knew to her that harmed her. And you don't want to see them in that way.
Yeah, and I agree. And it's like one of those weird things because like even with my grandmother, different relationship. She was retired. My maternal grandmother. She was retired. So the amount of time she spent with me and my big sister Dara was completely different than all the other grandkids. So like, and I assume this is like that for a lot of grandparents. Like, if you have a working grandparent versus a retired grandparent, you're going to have a whole different type of grandparent relationship. Yes. You know what I'm saying? That relationship is going to characterize the whole get down differently. You know what I'm saying? That grandparent that wake up and picking you up from school and just like basically they can set their whole life up around grandparent.
Right.
Whereas
but that parent to your parent
is a whole different
person. And I think we socialize it and we laugh about it, but the level of trauma that still is there is not always about being physically beaten or like molested. Isn't greater than a lot of those things. It's the emotional impact that comes with that. So like for our generation, I'm gonna speak for myself, my parents and their parents, so my grandparents treated, there was a certain level of treatment that came along with being a girl or a boy, right?
Okay, and
a certain level of responsibility.
Time out. Let me say this. This is a discussion that happens every Thanksgiving at my family household. I'm pretty sure many other households, but continue.
But it's a certain level of responsibility that grandmother attributes to the girl children versus the boy children. Mm-hmm. And while the boy children are still allotted way more grace, and I'm just going to keep it general, allotted a lot more grace than the girl children, right? They're a little bit harder on the girl children because it's so many different things that they know. But I think it comes from them being a woman too, though, right? Like, you know it, you know how to experience and you know how to render and rear for a girl, maybe not so much as a boy. So all of the grace and passes that you give over here, subconsciously you don't understand it because you're trying to give that over to the man to do. But in those generations, because that was a heightened period of where we talked about really early on, you coming up from somewhere, you're being you're transplanting yourself somewhere else, so it's a different rule, it's a different vision, it's a different experience. So can we really focus on those things right now, because we're too busy trying to navigate, trying to be in this new place, in this new space, right? Like, it's early 50s. I got to deal with keeping a job, doing all these other things. But then also, too, I still need to make sure all of the focus is on this family. But I still got to go out there and work still, too, now, right? Like, it's not the same traditional setup as it was for my great-grandparents, where it was maybe, housewife more or less in those spaces, where my grandmother became gradually, she fell out of the housewife to the working wife. So now you got working wife, working husband, and now that changes and shifts the family dynamics too, I believe, right? I wasn't there, but in terms of like stories and experience, I saw the differences in treatment of my mom and her brothers. You know what I'm saying? And then I think it was even a little bit harder because my mom was the only girl. And then she has these 3 other brothers. You know what I'm saying? And her, sometimes from outside looking in, it's like, okay, they can do no wrong. Or why you always harder on me and I'm the one doing all of the things here and they're not doing anything. But it could be vice versa. It could be the male children, they're always doing everything. Like you said, your uncles went out, they built the house, right? Like they knew what time it was and they were going to go do it, and they made sure they stepped up and did what they were asked to do. And it's not always, I don't think it's always that in that space. So the long and short of that is the treatment for the girls and the boys in that time was totally different, I think. And the expectation was a little bit different.
I think even to this day.
And it's still, and it's trying to wrap back around into some of those values of like, what are the levels of expectation around women and men, even in a space of working wife, working husband, right?
I mean, but
and
reality,
contribution and all of that stuff.
When we look at our community and the amount of unmarried homes. Like, I mean, that's really the premise of one of my favorite John Singleton movies, Off. But the premise of Baby Boy is this whole concept of a mother, like, making a pseudo, like, almost like pseudo, not sexual, but, like, relationship with their son. And it existing in this interesting dynamic. Like, it's layers to that movie that reflect on so many so many common spaces and places for Black folks, and then it almost becoming cyclical and repeating in Jody or Tyrese's character's life as well. Like, as it carries on in this story, like the narrative of that is
how women baby the boys and they treat them a little bit
the way
more.
Society may treat this Black man.
Exactly.
So then you create the Black man that you probably feel as though is not manly enough to take care of his responsibilities,
or feels entitled to certain ways or expectations to being taken care of and not having to provide or not having to do certain things that maybe was once more common and more like the 50s, 60s, whatever it was. And not to say that was always like the underlying truth, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's probably plenty of families during that time period where the father just went to work, came home, sat down, didn't do anything else. Whereas now there's a little bit more expectation or maybe level of contribution from like working fathers and mothers. Like, don't sign me up for double duty. I ain't gonna pay and work. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna have to find a way to split this balance and split the baby or something like that. Like, it could be a little bit more cyclical. Yes, a lot of people still have those levels of values, and not to say that they're wrong at all. Like, if you have a certain way of being or a certain level of expectation in how you are focused on family and how you want to build your family, I think, again, that comes along with building that healthy relationship. Do you see the world the same way? Do you still have the same values? Do you have the same perspective? And it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it should be something that is closely aligned enough so that you can, again, stay on mission, do what you need to do to do life together and progress. Like, you stagnate yourself with other things and things, people change, ideas change, thoughts change, circumstances change. We just had a whole pandemic that could throw a whole lot of people off of their square and their mission of what they were intended to do before, and now they're on a new mission, or maybe their mission is altered. They have a reroute or whatever it is. Blessings to everybody who can do all of those things and still be in those spaces and be partner with somebody who knows that's what it is. It's not. It's continuous movement because we are together and we know the understanding of what that togetherness means for us, because we have the same value. We started off hopefully knowing like who we are and how we're gonna be. I can be happy in these spaces. I can be productive in these spaces. I can do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know these things about myself. So then when I need to partner with somebody, I know how to, help navigate all of those different pieces of like, okay, so you need this right now. Okay, I got that. Or, you know what I'm saying? I need this from you.
Wow.
Need is a strong word. And I don't, you know what I'm saying? I have a lot of people who go back and forth with me on like need. Yes, you do need somebody. Like,
well, we bringing you back.
Yeah.
Bring you
back. Okay.
I gotta give you the classic Detroit is different questions now, because you giving a lot of game in this, and it's interesting. I definitely don't have the answers to a lot of this stuff I'm asking, because I think your relationship with yourself, your relationship with family, business, coworkers, your neighbors, like relationships, we're communal. Like, we as people, we're social. We thrive in spaces with people, hence where social media comes. But it also, needs a balance. So classic Detroit is different questions.
Okay.
Your very first car, year, make, and model, and what year did you get it?
I was getting money. 99 Pontiac Grand Am.
Okay. What year?
I got it in 2000.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, it was fresh. All right.
Yeah. No, my parents was getting money then. No, I'm joking. They bought it from Enterprise, and it was a red Pontiac Grand Am.
Where was the first place you went when you got it?
Work.
Oh, ain't that something? Wow. Ain't that something? Where was you working?
Because I still had the responsibility. They paid for the car. I paid for the insurance.
Okay. Where was you working?
Randazzles.
Oh, man. Okay.
In Roseville.
Oh, okay. You didn't work at the one in the hood. I was there today.
Nope, not the one in the hood. I worked at the one on, out in Roseville. I can't even remember the name of the street right now, but either way, yeah.
I got held up at a train. Pure Eastside.
Yeah, not the one off of Van Dyke.
Yes. Yeah. The one across the street from the 007.
Yes.
It's like, wow.
Not that one.
It's like you can get produce, and then at night it turns crazy.
Yes, very much so.
You're the DJ, the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 3 songs. What songs you playing?
Ooh. I don't know. It's probably gonna be something Drake. Everybody likes Drake music. He has a lot of
So what
hits.
songs?
I don't know. I don't know names of songs like that, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know the names of songs. I probably would just search Drake top songs and then just play something that. Yeah. That's something I feel like everybody probably likes. Or had
I'll play Jumpman and Hotline Bling.
They know it.
Okay.
Have fun with it.
All right. You can rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who is it and why?
Oh, that's a hard one. Ooh. Dang. Gil Scott-Heron. I like his music. And his thoughts and ideas and theories too.
Okay. We almost lost Detroit. There we go.
Yep.
Shout out him.
Yeah.
Definitely. What's the word? Johannesburg. A lot of stuff. Friend of the great and my homie Jessica Care Moore. So,
yeah. For sure.
Definitely shout that out.
Yeah.
So I don't know I don't know what you want on your lower thirds. If people gonna follow up, get you engaged and glow again, or whatever, perspective. How you want to leave people to parting shot, get in contact with you.
BetterDetroitYouthMovement.org. That's where you can go in terms of helping and supporting. We're still doing a lot of that stuff, but yeah, to even get back into the schools and do other mentoring programs, reach out. So we're here. We're still in it, in the space of moving, and again, finding out where it makes most sense for us to help and support, especially coming out of this time of the pandemic, especially education, academically, making sure students are sound and supported and they're really progressing where they need to be to get to that next level. So yeah. Yep. BetterDetroitYouth.org.
That's what's up.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.